What's up, PokeTube? Time for some late night thoughts. Got my hat on, got the sunglasses on, jacket on, I'm ready to go. When did this whole thing all start? In the 90s. Pokemon Red version, Pokemon Blue version. We got cards, came out. Still remember getting the first card I ever got, a Pikachu base set. Spent years playing Magic the Gathering in my youth, playing the DS games, gold, silver, later on heart gold, black, white, diamond, pearl. And the hobby, the fandom, it's only grown. It's only grown. It's bigger than ever. There's a lot of money in the whole thing. I never thought, when I bought when I bought Heart Gold, that game was going to go up to $200. I can't even get my hand on a copy of, I'd love to have a copy of Crystal version. Oh, it's way too much. It's $100, I think. I think if you want Emerald for the Game Boy Advance, that's going to be at least $200, right? Or something like that. It's essentially all out of my price range. And, I think that's kind of where we're at with the card game right now. It's like you want to collect, but it's like, who can afford that? And in regards to collecting and affordability, the pull rates are quite low, especially if you want to get a gold Charizard or an SIR or anything. I haven't seen much. I've opened plenty of packs. I hardly see anything. That's how it goes. I'm hearing good news is that the pull rates for Perfect Order are going to be good. I think I was watching Danny Phantom earlier, and he was saying that we're gonna have illustration rares in 1 out of 9 packs instead of maybe, I think, was he saying Phantasmal Flames or some other set was 1 out of 12 packs you get an IR. I'm seeing. Did I see today that they're reprinting Iono? I think that's an interesting thing to be happening, for the TCG. I think a lot of people have speculated that it would be rotating out. I see it's still in there, so, Dragapult's alive and well. That's what I've been playing, Dragapult. Iono. And, goodbye to Gardevoir's going to rotate out. This is what it seems like is going to happen. And they're also rotating out. Does that mean the Goldango deck is going to rotate out? And I'm here, ranting a little bit about the trading card game. And, a lot of money has moved into the hobby because of collecting, Who doesn't like to collect? I was watching good old Opossum Bud, and that guy is brazenly cracking open PSA 10 slabs. Now, would I do that? Absolutely not. Now, do I agree with PSA? I think they have a monopoly, and I think their business practices are a little bit there's mixed reviews about their business practices, I should say. I think that's to be even-handed to say that PSA has mixed reviews. And I'm impressed with him cracking open those slabs of PSA 10. Now I would just sell those slabs and buy it raw and take, the extras and reinvest it into my collection, I guess, like it matters, And I see people also people are getting really ticked off about Oh my God, you cracked those slabs, you're throwing away money. It's like, man, if they're 10s, I guess you can just regrade them as 10s. Like, yeah, if you crack your slabs, why can't you just regrade them as a 10 later on if you need that 10? I was listening to an interesting tangent earlier from Oyama's Trading, because everybody seems to think that tag is the future with their AI grading. Now, are these the same AI that makes the slop that you see on social media and in the reels, Instagram reels, the AI slop? I don't know if that's the same kind of AI. This is the same kind of AI that you see in Terminator 2, and the world's ending because Skynet's taking over. I don't know, but what Oyama's telling us in this video I was watching is that I guess granted they have this AI system or whatever, this computer grading system, and it's not even perfectly accurate. So you haven't fixed the problem of PSA's inconsistency of human error. So what's the solution to grading? Like, I think generally, grading isn't horrible. All in all, I think about, cards that I would think would be relevant to grade. Like, yeah, you go back, and the cards from my childhood, like a Fossil Dragonite, I love that card. It's like, you're not going to play with it. Maybe you'd like to have it in a binder. If that's what you like to do, put it in a binder. That's what Opossum Bud is cracking his slabs for, to put them in binders. Or a base set Charizard. It's like, I mean, they look good in a slab. It's something that could be a display piece. I mean, isn't that why people have them? Maybe they just have them, as like some sort of investment. They put it away. They don't even look at it. If you're Logan Paul and you're out here ruining the hobby, quote unquote. I mean, I don't have that big of an opinion of it, but I mean, he's trying to bring money into it one way or another. I think the accusation is that Logan Paul is more concerned about the money aspects of Pokemon rather than the love of the love of the characters, the love of the IP. He made some sort of like, hey, he's true story or not, he's talking about, oh, I like to boot up my copy of Red version. Wouldn't it be nice if they remade Red version and so we can just replay it? It's like, didn't they do that over and over again? Like Fire Red version or the Pokemon Let's Go. And I gotta say, I do have Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. I just couldn't get through it. Maybe someday I'll feel real nostalgic enough to play through it. I don't know. I just did not like the catching mechanics. I can't get into it. I do like the catching mechanics that they have for the Legends games, such as Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Legends ZA. If you're gonna just physically throw the Pokeball as part of like a movement, I like the action aspect of it, and I think that's a good addition to the game overall. Do I want them to deviate from the turn-based strategy for battles? Not at all. I really like that. Maybe I'm nostalgic. I grew up playing Japanese style RPGs from the late 90s and early 2000s, the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy Tactics, Pokemon Red, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Gold. Kind of missed the Game Boy Advance games, in middle school or whatever, but by the time we're in high school, me and my friends were like, Gen 4, let's go. Diamond, Pearl. I think I have my Platinum somewhere. And then, so you get all this money that is being brought into the hobby, and it's like, not what I ever expected. You get people here, I see all the time, maybe they're doing like, I don't know if they're doing pack openings or they have cards, or I'm even in a local game store and like, but people don't know how to pronounce the card names or the Pokemon names really, or they don't know what a Pokemon is. And I'm like, you know what? I saw several times, not trying to call anybody out by name, but with the release, the teasing of Perfect Order, we did see that, you know, the Mega Clefable, and I saw several times people call it Mega Clefairy, and it's like, you know, I get that. That might just be like an honest mistake, and they probably know the difference between Clefairy and Clefable, but it's like, and I don't mean to be nitpicky or gatekeepy in the hobby, if you will, but, you know, it's like I was in a game store a while back when the Solosis, it's an illustration rare, correct? The Solosis IR, they were calling the Booger Mew, was just going off, and people thought it was just gonna be like, just going to the moon, if they will. You know, everybody's trying to get a hold of a Solosis illustration rare, and it's gonna, because the same artist that does the Bubble Mew, and this guy didn't even know what the name of the Pokemon. He was like, the I don't know, is the Booger Mew? He didn't know what it was. He was trying to talk to the manager of the card store. I was just going through bulk bins, you know. It's like, you know, pulling out 10 cent foils out of the bulk bin. It's like, okay, I'll just buy all these foils for 10 cents. Why not? I don't know. It's too good of a deal at some point just to have the foils for 10 cents. You know, so, you know, I was watching a guy the other day. He's, you know, no names, but like, you know, he's trying to get into card openings and trying to start his, you know, his card selling journey or whatever on YouTube. And, you know, he didn't know the card names. I'm like, well, he's an older guy. He probably wasn't into it. It's not his entire life. It's not, you know, the one consistent thing in my life has been Pokemon. Well, as a child, you know, the cards, the red version, the gold version, my teenage years, Gen 4, black and white. You know, I even have Pokemon Sun, and I recently went back and played Pokemon X because I wanted to be, you know, informed on the storyline for Pokemon ZA. You know, I was so excited when Sword and Shield came to the Switch. You know, I finally was like, oh, it's time to get a Switch because Pokemon. You know, I bought a Nintendo Switch so I can play Sword and Shield. You know, we're gonna play Scarlet and Violet. I have Violet version. It's the one thing that's been consistent in my life. I've learned all of these characters. I hold them dear. You know, it's like my favorite Pokemon from childhood. You know, you pick Charmander. You know, I'm a rambunctious young kid. I want fire. You know, he's a fire lizard. That's my guy. Now, you know what? I love Blastoise and I love Venusaur. I reset that game and played through the game. Replayability was great. You could pick, you know, whatever starter you wanted and play the whole game like that and build your team around your starter. You know, Charizard, love him. Mewtwo, love him. You know, that's the one thing I'll say about the trading card game is that you get to play with Pokemon that just aren't relevant in the video game. It's like, yeah, in the early days, Mewtwo was king, and anymore, the Psychic type's been completely nerfed. You know, I love the evolutions. Like, I love all of them. They're all so good. I can't pick any that I absolutely hate. Do I think maybe one is weakest? Leafeon, sorry, buddy. I like Leafeon, but I think, you know, and I love Leafeon, but anyway, my rant is, of course, that you don't get to play with, you can, in your playthrough, you can use the evolutions, but like if you want to get down and play some VGC, there's no space for the evolutions. You don't even see evolutions in lower power formats, you know, where the mythicals and legendary Pokemon are banned. So, and even when you have legendary and mythical Pokemon in the game, Mewtwo is entirely outclassed. Where am I going with this rant? I think, it's just interesting to see how big Pokemon has become. Something that, I sort of just always liked my entire life, and it's always been a part of my life. In and out, the games, in and out. And now I'm getting into the card game. You get to go play with Dragapult. Dragapult had some moments in, a competitive, and I always use Dragapult in my Sword and Shield playthrough. I love Dragapult, and it's very fun to play the Dragapult deck. I'm excited to see that somebody tried to throw in a little Moltres card in there, in their Dragapult build. I think it's one from Phantasmal Flames, just a regular one, not an EX or anything. So it's exciting. I'm glad Pokemon is at an all-time high right now, and I do want it to keep going. But I just have to cringe when, it's Jake Paul selling a card for $5 million. You can't get your hands. How am I gonna get my hands on a Mega Charizard? Like, how can I collect? Like, I can't open packs. You can't open packs to get all the cards you want. There's too many cards. They're too expensive. And there's a pause button. I'm a little bit triggered. This guy's cracking PSA 10s. I don't like PSA 10s or PSA. Like, who does? I wouldn't be cracking a PSA 10. I'd just be like happy to have it. But he's just gonna collect. He's gonna throw it in a binder. I respect that. I understand that. I kind of like the idea of liquidating it if I'm like in a pinch, or like I said, like anybody else who's hurting for money enough, they're gonna, sell it and try to get the raw cards. And that's another thing I hear about is that, nobody can sell a Pokemon card. I've never sell a Pokemon card. I'm like, really? Well, who'd you buy your cards from? Like, somebody's got to sell them. The guy at the local game store is like, he's not any morally more entitled to sell it just because he has distribution. The whole process of getting distribution is gatekept. I've tried to start businesses in other fields, and it's just like trying to get distribution. Like, they won't let you have it if you ain't got like the perfect brick and mortar store or this and that, which takes capital. And it's like, if you grew up in a certain social class, maybe you never have that capital. And it's like, you're not morally, it's just like an interesting point to take. Like, don't do retail arbitrage. Like, don't go pick up don't go to Sam's Club and buy at wholesale, some prismatic bundles and sell them. It's like, yeah, I want some prismatic bundles. I can't afford them. Limit 2, sell one and keep one. And now I'm not trying to excuse scalping, because there really is a lot of people out there that just have like, no common courtesy. You see this guy is like picking up whole pallets of, slab, or what are they called? Yeah, they're single packs with in the cardboard. Anyway. Yeah, don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that's like trying to run and take it from the children. That's another thing. It's like, this is a mini Jake Paul. You're selling packs for $10, and Jake Paul is selling his medallion Pikachu Illustrator card for $10 million or whatever he thinks he's gonna get for it. That's my rant. This is my longest one. I guess if you made it this far and you liked it, You can subscribe, comment, help me out. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.